Welcome to Wildly Capable with Kate, a podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach on a mission to help people build better relationships, starting with the one they have with themselves. In each episode, we'll dig deep, turn inwards, and embark on a transformative journey. Together, we'll break free from unhealthy patterns, rip through self-limiting beliefs, heal past wounds, and build unwavering self-worth, all to create healthier relationships as a result. Get ready to explore the wild, untapped potential within you. Are you ready to see just how wildly capable you are? Subscribe now and join us on this empowering adventure. Remember, your wildest capabilities await. How do you trust your intuition when you're afraid you may be projecting past trauma on the current situation? I'm going to dive into that question and so much more on today's episode of Wildly Capable with Kate. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Kate, your host, and I'm a dating and relationship coach who's on a mission to help you build better relationships. I created this podcast to dive deeper into the topics that I talk about every day in my own life and my relationship with my clients. I want to be able to get information and wisdom and advice and tips out to you guys as much as humanly possible, so that way your relationships can become healthier, better, stronger, more fulfilling. And one of the things that I really had to work through and make sense of in my own life, and that I've seen so many women and men that I've worked with also have to figure out in their lives too, is discerning between trauma and intuition. Because oftentimes when we go through difficult life situations and we face traumas, when we get out of those situations, we tend to see everything through that lens. We view people, relationships, their responses, their behaviors, circumstances through the lens of the hurt that we experienced in the past. And it can be really hard to differentiate between when you are actually putting your past onto your present, and then when it's actually something that's real coming up in your intuition. It's hard to tell if you are feeling upset or triggered or confused or hurt based on your trauma, or if it's based on your actual inner voice trying to communicate something to you. So I want to help you make sense of that. I want to break this down. I want to give you actual tools and insights as to how you can begin to see the difference between trauma and intuition, a trauma response and your intuition trying to talk to you. For me, it took years to figure this out. If you know my story, you know I went through a series of bad, toxic, abusive, unhealthy relationships in my 20s. And when I finally broke free from that cycle and started dating healthy men and being in really beautiful, healthy relationships, I would often find myself confused as to whether what I was feeling internally was from my inner voice, from my intuition, or if I was projecting the fears and the worries and the hurts from my past onto this new situation. So to give you an example, in the past, a really big wound for me was when men would give me the silent treatment. They wouldn't answer my phone calls, they wouldn't text me back, and they would do it purposely to punish me and to hurt me and to make me feel anxious and to overthink. It was intentional. So in my relationship with Bobby, when we first started dating, initially when I wouldn't hear back from him in the time span that I personally felt I was comfortable with, or like my triggers and fears could handle, I would start to project the behaviors of those past men onto him in this new situation. So I wouldn't hear back from him, and I would start to get really frustrated and really heightened, and I would reach out to try to understand what was going on. And 99% of the time, absolutely nothing was going on. He just was busy. He was at work. He was out with friends and just wasn't paying attention to his phone. He's a very present person, so he stays off of his phone when he's with people. And it took me a while to realize that I was actually putting my past traumas onto my new present reality. And it's really common to do that because your brain is doing its absolute best to take care of you. It's doing its best to protect you. So when one little thing feels off, your brain immediately jumps to all those past situations where the thing that you feared actually was true. They actually were ignoring you. They were doing something to hurt you. Your brain goes back to that because it's what it has seen and experienced in the past. It's what it's familiar with. And then it puts it onto your present reality in an attempt to protect you, in an attempt to get you out of the situation, to help you see the truth, to help you remove yourself from any relationship you're not meant to be in. Your brain is doing its job to protect you. It just doesn't need to do the same thing in this new situation that it did in the past. Who you are is different. The person you're dating is different. The situation is different. So it just doesn't call for the same prescription that your brain had to give to you in the past. So, how do you trust your intuition and not let your trauma take over? How do you not let past patterns and fears and narratives and stories get in your way of actually seeing the truth, of being able to discern between intuition and trauma? It all boils down to being able to tune into the difference and how you will feel when you are in a trauma response and when your intuition is speaking to you. There is an actual feeling you will be able to start to register and make sense of once you learn to do so. But before we get to that, I want to remind you all that I'm currently taking on new clients. I have space for 2 more going into the fall, and I would love to work with you. I would love to help you break your old patterns, to overcome your old wounds, to heal your limiting mindsets so you can find lasting love. I believe that we find beautiful, true, authentic, lasting love when we first turn inwards and learn how to heal ourselves. So that's the journey I will take you on. I will take you through my 3-step process to help you uncover anything going on within you to create more beautiful relationships as a result once you do. If you're interested in working with me, there are a few different coaching options that I have for you. I have full programs. There's 3 programs that I will walk you through and that you can choose from. I do breakthrough sessions, which is a 2-hour intensive call where we really get in there and accomplish as much as possible in those 2 hours. And then I also do ongoing coaching once you've graduated from one of my programs. So I'm here to support you through every stage of your relationships. Whether you are single, dating, divorced, married, I am here to help you build better relationships, and I would love to come alongside you as you do. If you're interested in working with me, head to my website, coachkatederocher.com. Fill out my coaching application, and then I will reach out to set up a free discovery call. In that call, we will just get to know each other and see if we're a good fit to work together. So fill it out. It is just an easy first step on this beautiful, powerful journey. So don't wait. This is your sign to start today. Again, head to coachkatederocher.com. I am so excited to meet you. Okay, so why do trauma and intuition so often so easily get confused? I know I'm not the only person who has struggled with this, and I have struggled with it. I had to really fight myself to figure out what the difference was, and then to be able to be so familiar with it that now I don't have to second guess myself anymore. But why do they get confused? Why do they feel so similar to where we can actually mix them up sometimes? Well, there's a lot of reasons. The first is that trauma can actually disrupt your intuition. Research shows that trauma can disrupt how we perceive and respond to situations. Studies on trauma survivors indicate that past trauma often leads to hypervigilance and creates difficulty distinguishing between real threats and perceived ones. This affects intuition, and it makes it harder for us to trust our gut instincts. PTSD, the effects of trauma, affects about 6% of the US population at some point or another in their lives. And that impacts how people process information and react to stressors. Many people with PTSD struggle with hyperarousal and exaggerated responses to perceived threats, again, perceived, and that clouds intuition. On top of that, it puts us into our fight or flight brain. Trauma often activates the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, and it overrides the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making center. This leads to heightened emotional responses and difficulty processing situations logically, again, causing people to mistake fear for intuition. Studies also show that about 30 to 40% of trauma survivors experience heightened reactivity to perceived threats that often confuse intuition with trauma responses. Intuition is also largely a function of pattern recognition. It's built from experience and subconscious learning. So, over time, based on the things we go through, our subconscious builds patterns. And that is how our intuition is formed. People make up to 95% of their decisions unconsciously through the intuitive process. However, for trauma survivors, those patterns are skewed by negative past experiences, which again can distort intuition. You guys, the brain stores memories of traumatic events in a way that causes survivors to associate new, unrelated experiences with past trauma. Again, this makes the intuitive process wonky and confusing, and it's really hard to make sense of because we react to new situations as if they were threats from our past. Those are some of the reasons why trauma and intuition get so confused. And why, when we are in situations where we're feeling something, like we're feeling a threat, we're feeling uncomfortable, we're feeling like there maybe is more to the story than we know that there is, we can struggle as trauma survivors, people who've experienced difficult situations in their lives, can struggle to make sense between, is this a reality for what's happening right now? Or am I feeling this way because something from my past is being brought up? And it's hard to tell the difference between those two. But good news is that it is completely possible. Like I said, in my own life, I had the hardest time with this. I would get really triggered and elevated and just have a big emotional reaction to something in my present day that really was so difficult because I was putting a past situation onto the present one. And I had a hard time telling the difference between what was actually happening now and what was coming up because of my past. I had to do a lot of work to be able to tell the difference between the two, to be able to discern between my past trauma and my actual present intuition. So, how did I do this? The first thing I did was I dove deep into mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness has been shown to reduce PTSD symptoms by 32%. And if you've listened to my past podcast episodes, you know that I was actually diagnosed with PTSD back in 2017. So I was roughly 22 years old. I went to my first therapist. She diagnosed me with PTSD. There was a lot going on inside of me, a lot of past traumas that I had never addressed that were really destroying not only my external relationships, but my internal relationship with myself too. And I had to heal that. I had to actually figure out how to heal that, namely on my own. So the first thing I did was I tried meditation and I learned the concept of mindfulness. And I don't even know how that was introduced to me because it's definitely not something that growing up in the Midwest in a family that doesn't address emotions ever looked into. But I must have seen it somewhere. Somebody recommended it to me. So I started just listening to, I believe it was either the Calm app or Headspace. Those are kind of like the best intro to meditation formats, was to listen to 10-minute guided meditations on those apps. So I started small. I started with 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. And then before I knew it, I was booking classes at a studio called Unplug in Santa Monica, California. And I was going to 45-minute classes that would feel like they were 2 minutes long. So I really connected with my own mind and I learned to release all of the fear-based thoughts and the worries that were swimming around inside of me that were absolutely controlling the way I was responding and behaving in relationships. Mindfulness helped me reconnect with my intuition and learn to trust myself again because I could make sense of those crazy thoughts that were swimming around inside of me, those thoughts that were just constantly bombarding me. I could calm those down and I could get to the root of what my intuition was trying to tell me because I was finally able to remove all of that extra noise. Not to mention, mindfulness served as a pattern interrupt. So when I was in that really fear-based way of thinking, that somebody was out to get me, my new relationships were going to turn out like my old relationships, when I was stuck on that negative feedback loop because my brain was trying to protect me due to past traumas, mindfulness was the thing that came in and interrupted that and said, you know what? You don't actually have to keep thinking this way. And it helped me have a new perspective and calm those thoughts down to redirect them to something healthier. So mindfulness and meditation, give those a try if this is something you're struggling with. I've recently been listening to a ton of Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations and I love them. They're about 15, 20 minutes long. He has longer ones that you can purchase online too. I've just been using his free ones that are available on YouTube. And it's been an incredible tool for me to remove all of the chatter going on inside of me to actually get in touch with my inner knowing. Because our intuition, our inner knowing is always there. It's always available to us. It's just a matter of being able to tap into it. And that's part of the process of learning to differentiate between a trauma response and your intuition, is actually being able to tap deeply into that inner knowing and remove all of the fear-based thoughts and the worries and the stories you're telling yourself from the past to get to that point. Another amazing thing that I learned to do was to actually pause, slow down, and check in with my body. When you're faced with a decision or when you're trying to make sense of something, just take a moment, just literally pause, stop speaking, stop moving, stop processing, and just sit there and notice how your body feels. Notice how it's reacting and figure out where that feeling lies in your body. It's really important to be able to do this because trauma, what it will feel like, is very heightened, very overexcited, frantic, anxious. It's kind of all over the place. Your thoughts are going left and right and up and down. There's a lot going on. That's what trauma feels like. It feels frantic. It feels intense. It feels chaotic. But intuition, on the other hand, while it may be telling you the same things, maybe it's telling you something you don't necessarily want to hear, it will still feel calm. It will make you feel centered. You'll be overwhelmed with this deep inner knowing where you're not questioning things. You're not in your head freaking out and processing a million things. You just have this calm certainty and clarity that waves over you. That's intuition. So when you pause and check in with your body, if you can feel the emotions and you can tell they're kind of firing all over the place, it's rapid fire, that's trauma. If you check in and you feel just kind of centered and grounded and like you just know, you deeply know, that's your intuition. If it's coming from trauma, it will feel chaotic. If it's coming from intuition, it will feel calm. That's the biggest difference that I can explain to you guys. And that's why it's so important to be able to pause and reflect and just sit with yourself, understand the feelings that are coming up, and then ask where you're actually feeling them. Intuition will feel kind of like it's in your chest, just this like deep internal, like deep in your gut feeling. And trauma will feel really in your head because it's frantic, it's freaking out, it's losing its mind. Check in with what you're feeling and then where you're feeling it. Some things you may feel if you're experiencing a trauma response and it's not actually your intuition talking to you is a racing heart, your chest tightening, a sense of panic, a lot of fear, a lot of overthinking. That's kind of how you can tell if it's coming from something from the past and not something that you need to know right then. On top of that, when you are pausing and taking some time to reflect on what you're feeling and where you're feeling it, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. These questions can help you get more clear on what you're actually feeling and where it's coming from. The first one is, what is this current situation reminding me about from my past? What past experiences is this current situation reminding me of? Sit and reflect on that. Write down as many things, as many bullet points as you can that may be tied to your past. Whatever you're feeling now, if you felt it before, write that down. So for example, if you feel like somebody that you're dating is lying to you about something, start to reflect on the many other times in your life where you've maybe been lied to. Did an ex lie to you? Has a parent lied to you? Has a friend betrayed you? List those things so you can get really clear on if you are projecting those past experiences onto the current one. The next question to journal on and think about is this feeling consistent or does it fluctuate with my emotions? Intuition is going to be telling you the same thing through line all the time. It's not going to change. If your intuition is trying to get you to see something, to communicate something to you, it's going to be telling you the same thing. Maybe it'll shift ever so slightly if the situation changes, but the overarching theme, the message is trying to get across, will stay the same. So intuition stays consistent. But if it's coming from a trauma response, it will flip-flop and change based on your mood, based on the circumstance, based on how somebody talks to you, based on your partner calling you, so many things. And that's a way you can know that it's not coming from your intuition because it is not this deep knowing that is unwavering. It changes. And last but not least, ask yourself, is my response coming from self-protection or self-growth? As you know, Your brain works to protect you based on your trauma. It steps in when it feels like you need to be protected, like you need safety, and it runs a show based on things you've gone through in the past, not based on the present. So if it is based, whatever you're feeling is coming from trauma, then it will be out of the need to protect yourself. Your behaviors, how you show up, your responses will be all in an attempt to make you feel safe again, to protect you. Intuition, on the other hand, is more forward focused. Its goal is to help you grow, even if it's uncomfortable. So ask yourself, am I responding this way? Am I feeling this way because of protecting myself, the need to protect myself? Or am I actually needing to grow and go through something hard and uncomfortable, but for my greater good? The next thing you can do to help you understand the difference between intuition and trauma is to give yourself permission to slow down. You don't have to understand what's going on, or you don't have to have clarity, or you don't have to make decisions about the situation immediately. Overthinking just rushes in when we're trying to control a situation or force an answer to come. Instead, let your intuition have time to surface without pressure. Let the truth come to you because it always will. And the last thing I did in my life to help me figure out the difference between my trauma responses and my inner voice talking to me was that I learned how to engage with my past, but not let it control me. We need to honor the emotions that come up in our bodies. When difficult, negative, hard emotions come up, if you just brush those to the side, you're never going to be able to heal them. Ask yourself, what do you need right now? How can I make you feel safer? What will make you feel good in this moment? And then give that to yourself. So honor the emotions when they come up, but don't stay in them. Trauma can make it hard to differentiate between protective instincts and intuition. So it's important to acknowledge your wounds, but also remind yourself that every situation is new. Trust that your past doesn't have to dictate your future, and that with time and self compassion, your intuition will become more trustworthy and easier to hear. Honor your emotions, feel them, give yourself space to process, but don't stay stuck in them because you can't keep letting the past run the show. Like I said, you are a new person. This is a new relationship, a new situation. So trust in that, and you will be guided into whatever you need to know from there. I hope this helps you understand how you can start to understand the difference between trauma and intuition, and then learn how to strengthen your intuition and trust it more and more and more. When we go through difficult experiences, we lose trust within ourselves. We blame ourselves. We wonder how we even got into that situation. We feel embarrassed, and that breaks our trust within ourselves. It breaks our trust, our respect, our ability to rely on ourselves. So it just takes time to rebuild it. And that's a beautiful journey to get to step into. It's not a bad thing to have to rebuild it. You can actually build it to be stronger than it even was before, because now you know the difference between trauma and intuition. And now you can strengthen your trust in your intuition when it does speak up. So, key thing, remember, trauma feels really chaotic. Intuition feels really calm. Check in with your body, slow down, don't rush the process of making sense of things, and honor your emotions, but don't stay stuck in them. I hope this gives you the understanding you need to be able to tell the difference between your trauma coming up and instead your intuition speaking up. So that way, going forward, when you get into a new relationship or form new friendships, you don't let your past harm them. You don't let your past dictate how you feel in them. You're able to tell the difference between old things coming up and the truth about what's happening currently, and then make decisions based on that. Your intuition will get stronger and stronger and stronger every time you slow down, every time you listen to yourself, every time you ask yourself those questions. And someday it will be second nature and you won't have to second guess yourself so much. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to set up a coaching call with you to chat more about these things. And like I said, I'm taking on new clients right now. So reach out to me on Instagram. You can DM me the word capable, and then I will send you my coaching application. Or just head to my website, coachkatederocher.com, fill out the application there on my website, and then I will set up a call with you from there. I'm so excited to keep helping you make sense of these things because they are complex and confusing, and I have been there, I have done that, so I'm here to help you do the same thing. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please rate, like, subscribe, send this to friends, share it on social media. Your support means so much. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will see you here next week on Wildly Capable with Kate.